Good morning, YouTube. I feel like it's been such a long time since I talked with you guys. I hope you're doing well. Last week I offered a freebie instead of actually coming on here and making a video. I thought it'd be nice to just give you something that you can use in your class right away. So hopefully you had a chance to download it and hopefully your students had a great time using it. Today I'm back. I wanted to talk a little bit about one of my favorite labs. I have talked about this lab before. It does have to do with chemical reactions. So if you're in that unit with your students, this is such a great lab to do. So I'm doing a types of chemical reactions station set, and you can see behind me it's all set up. I stayed late yesterday to set that up. It takes a lot of prep work to do stations, but I just find it's a lot more fun for the kids to be able to move around the classroom, and it's just a new experience at every single station. I have to finish getting all that set up. I have to go and make copies for the AP kids. Really what I probably am gonna have to do is check in with you probably during my lunch period today, because I don't really have a lot of time because I pretty much have lab twice today. So I have a total of 4 periods with my CP class, and then of course I have my 2 AP classes. So it's gonna be a super busy day, but I promise I will fill you in as soon as I am finished. I had a very productive morning, so I'm able to pop on here and talk about what I'm doing with the CP students. Now, I will say that we are at the end of our unit on chemical reactions. So we've done all of the different types of chemical reactions, predicting products, balancing, even indicating, whether or not a reaction occurs with both single replacement and double replacement. And then we've even done some particle diagrams. So we've done a lot in this unit. There's a lot that goes into it. And so we're kind of at the point where I'm ready to assess. So their assessment is actually tomorrow. And so I thought one of the things that we could do, since kind of the timing of the lab worked out just right, we are now having our lab today. And so I wanted to spend the period where the kids are actually doing reactions. Now, I do incorporate some sort of reactions in the beginning of the unit where the kids are looking at the phenomenaling experience with the Hindenburg and forming water. But then we really don't come back to it until a little bit later. And so today, my students were spending time looking at all the different reaction types. They were looking at all 5: combustion, single replacement, double replacement, synthesis, decomposition. They really spent a lot of time looking at the products and how that relates to what they actually produce, what they actually made. So I think a lot of students have the issue with not understanding that when you perform a double replacement reaction, you literally have 2 solutions that you're pouring together and a solid is going to precipitate. So I wanted them to have the experience of actually seeing what it would look like if a reaction does occur versus a reaction not occurring. I did do this as a demonstration, so I did use a copper 2 hydroxide precipitate early on with the double replacements. But it's one thing to do it as a demo, but it's a whole nother thing to actually have the kids do it in lab. So I thought this would be a nice way for them to actually see whether or not a reaction occurs and how you know whether or not the reaction occurs. The other component of the lab that I really like is it had the students write all the different states of matter, because again, they're performing the reaction. They can actually see the physical states of the reactants and the products produced. And then using their observations of the reactants and products, they may have to figure out what one of the products is, for example. So I thought it was a really effective strategy for them to kind of move around the room. That way I didn't have to set up as much equipment for the students. I only had the equipment at each station that the students absolutely needed. And then I also liked incorporating a filtering apparatus for each of the stations. That was kind of nice for the students to see that those precipitates that form, they are actually solid and you can in fact filter them. So overall, I think it was a really great lab for the students. I think it really helped them to, again, cement those concepts that maybe aren't so clear. Literally when you perform a single replacement reaction, you're usually taking a metal and, for example, hydrochloric acid, a solution, and pouring them together. That sometimes is something that's really missing in the experience. At least for my students last year, we didn't get to do any labs. So I wanted to make sure that the students understood, when we're doing this, we're literally putting these things together, which is often, I think, really missed when we're doing virtual instruction. They don't really perceive that, oh yeah, we're actually taking these 2 reactants and putting them together. So this was a double period lab. And then what I had the students do is I had each table write up one of the reactions. So there were 6 total, and I had each table decide one person to get up and actually write the reaction, the word equation, the formula equation with states of matter on the board. It was good that we came together because often the students struggle with the peroxide decomposition. So I use manganese dioxide for the students to catalyze the reaction, but the students needed to be reminded, like, manganese dioxide is a catalyst, right? It's present before and after the reaction. They also didn't realize that water is a product. So they saw that the oxygen was produced because I had them put in a burning splint or a glowing splint, and they saw it relight. They didn't realize that water was also produced. A lot of them said that hydrogen was produced, and then I had to call their attention to the fact that there was another station with hydrogen and then the Hindenburg and all that. So, but it was definitely good to kind of redirect them and just address any issues or concerns that they had with the actual reactions that they did in the lab. This is a lab that I have actually in my store, but I have it written so that the students are kind of progressing through each reaction. They have to use all their equipment in their lab stations for it. I do not have stations written up, so what I think I'm going to do is take these stations and actually put them into the lab. So if you purchase the types of chemical reactions lab, I am going to update that lab to have all the different stations. That way, if you want the students to progress on their own time, that's fine, or if you want to have them kind of walk through the classroom and set up the stations, that can work too. Well, I think that is it for me. This was probably a pretty quick video. I am going to update my types of chemical reactions lab to reflect now some new stations. So I'll probably put both sets in there, so if you downloaded it or purchased it, you can absolutely feel free to download that extra little something that I put in there. Either way, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will be sure to check in with you guys next week.